everyone. So in our previous videos, we learned how scattering of photon can be a subject of study under Raman spectroscopy, which is actually a complementary technique to the IR spectroscopy. The radiation that is used in Raman spectroscopy lies in the low IR region. When a molecule is placed in a static electric field, the positively and the negatively charged particles that constitute the molecule, they get attracted to the opposite poles of the applied field. This attraction leads to the change, or let's say a charge separation, and consequently to the development of an induced dipole moment. In simple words, we say that the molecule has become polarized. Now, this tendency of the molecule to get polarized is known as polarizability, which is actually the basic principle of Raman spectroscopy. A single bond, if we compare it with a double bond, then a single bond is usually more polarizable than a double bond between the same set of atoms. This should be the condition that when we compare the two different bonds, that is, if we try to compare a single and a double bond, then it is observed that a single bond is usually more polarizable and hence more Raman effect can be seen over there. Okay. Now, these are the various laser sources commonly used in the Raman spectroscopy. So, we can use an argon ion source. We can also use as a krypton ion source of energy, or it can be a diode laser or helium neon source or helium neon laser. Usually, it is the helium neon laser that is most commonly used laser for the Raman spectroscopy, and most of the instruments carry this source of laser radiation. Okay, after having an idea about the different sources, the laser sources that are used in the Raman spectroscopy, let's move on to a quick brush up of what we had learned in our previous videos of Raman spectroscopy. We had attained this kind of spectrum in which we observed that the center portion of the spectrum, or let's say the central peak, is a very strong peak. Right, it has a great amplitude, whereas the other two peaks that lie left and right, one each, of this central peak, they are less intense, or let's say smaller peaks, right? And so the central peak that represents the Rayleigh scattering, okay, left to the Rayleigh scattering was the Stokes line. Okay, if you remember, the frequency is lesser than that of the Rayleigh scattering. Okay, and to the right of Rayleigh scattering lies the anti-Stokes line, wherein the frequency is greater than that of the Rayleigh scattering. Okay, now let's come to this representative figure over here at the bottom. The central line represented in orange color is the Rayleigh scattering, just corresponding to the peak in the spectrum. I've represented now with the help of a line, okay, just for the sake of convenience, right? To the left of the Rayleigh scattering is the Stokes line, and of course to the right is the anti-Stokes line. Now, actually, these vertical lines represented on a horizontal line, they are arranged in the order of increasing energy, right? Fine. So, let's say the Stokes lines, they carry the least amount of energy if we compare them with the Rayleigh and the anti-Stokes line. And a much greater energy is observed by the Rayleigh scattering, okay? Fine. And the maximum energy is attained by the anti-Stokes line. You can also remember it by the common expression of E is equal to Hc, E is equal to h nu, or Hc over lambda, right? Wherein the mu represents the frequency of radiation. Okay, and when energy is proportional to the Planck's constant, that is h, and c, that is the velocity of light, but it is inversely proportional to the wavelength. Okay, or we also represented by E is equal to h mu, that is energy is directly proportional to the frequency of radiation. And here in this particular spectrum, you see the least frequency is attained by the Stokes line, so definitely it is going to have the least amount of energy. Okay, which is followed by the Rayleigh scattering. And finally, the greatest amount of frequency value is attained by the anti-Stokes line, corresponding to the greatest amount of energy. Okay, so this can also be correlated in this manner, okay, by the Planck's equation. So actually what we were saying, that the Stokes, Rayleigh and the anti-Stokes lines, okay, they are shown here, represented here in the increasing energy order. Okay, so the energy of the Stokes line is the least, which is followed by the Rayleigh scattering, which possesses a much higher energy as compared to the Stokes line, and the maximum amount of energy is attained by the anti-Stokes line. Now, if we try to arrange these three lines that we obtain in the Raman spectroscopy in the order of their wavelength, then how does it go? We know that E is equal to hc by lambda. That means energy is inversely proportional to the wavelength of the radiation, right? So definitely if the energy is least, that means it is going to have maximum wavelength. So likewise, the arrangement will go like this. The wavelength of the Stokes line will be maximum than this should be the Rayleigh, it's an error over here, than the Rayleigh and then the anti-Stokes line. Okay, now this gap, the arrow which represents a gap between the Stokes line and the Rayleigh scattering, it is actually the change in energy. Okay, it represents a change in energy. Likewise, between the Rayleigh scattering and the anti-Stokes line, it is also a change in energy over here, right? Now there is one thumb rule which we all should remember while studying the Raman spectroscopy, because that will help in our numerical part in future. Okay, for one particular molecule, that is for the same molecule, right, the change in energy between the Stokes line and Rayleigh scattering, it will be always equal to the change in energy between the Rayleigh scattering and the anti-Stokes line. Okay, that means this difference in energy will be the same everywhere. Okay, so the delta E value, which is, let's say suppose it is x over here between Stokes line and Rayleigh scattering, it will be the same in between the Rayleigh scattering and anti-Stokes line. Okay, this is what we are trying to say over here. Okay, and this energy difference, this difference in energy, delta E represented over here, okay, this is known as Raman shift. Okay, so we are going to remember one point from here. Okay, we have an outcome over here. That means for a particular molecule, for any one molecule, the change in energy between the Stokes and Rayleigh will be equal to the change in energy between the Rayleigh and anti-Stokes for the same molecule. Okay, after this we come again to the concept building part. These circles, they represent a particular mode. Okay, fine. Okay, so this we have already covered in our previous video, so just have a quick recap of it, because with the other story is related to this part. Okay, so that's why we have included the same diagram over here, so that you can recall it very easily. Okay, so suppose a laser beam is made incident over the molecule and it carries, let's say, an amount of energy equal to 120. Okay, so what happens? The molecule, it moves to the virtual state and then it comes to the lower energy level, right? Now the energy level from which the molecule had started, or it was initially in the energy level n is equal to 1, after coming back from the virtual level, it has reached to n is equal to 2. Okay, now if we have a closer view of this portion, then what actually is happening? Okay, now initially the molecule was in n is equal to 1 energy level. After then it moves to the virtual energy state after acquiring an amount of energy from the laser beam, and then it comes back to the lower energy level, that is n is equal to 2. So the energy gap in between these two levels is, let's say, represented by delta E. Now if we have a zoom in or a closer view of only this portion of the molecule, then actually this is the process taking place. It was n is equal to 1 wherein the molecule had started. It was initially in energy level 1. It had acquired the energy from the laser, okay, which we assume to be having a volume value of 120, let's say. Okay, and then it moves to the virtual state. After coming back from the virtual state, it lands up into second orbit. Okay, I mean that means the energy level. Okay, so the difference there, definitely there is a difference between these two energy levels, because n is, if n is equal to 1, then it cannot have the same energy value as that for n is equal to 2, right? So what happens, initially the molecule was having this much amount of energy, right? Now when it has returned back from the virtual state, it has emitted this much amount of energy. Okay, so what about this energy, right? So this energy gap between the two energy levels, okay, it is represented by delta E that we had mentioned in our previous slide also, right? So it is represented by a delta E. Now there is one important point over here. Now this change in energy is also known as wave number displacement, okay, which actually will be helpful to us during solving our numericals based upon the Raman spectroscopy. Okay, and one thing should be kept in mind, I again repeat it as I said in the previous slide, one thing should be kept in mind, it's the thumb rule, that there is no change in the value of delta E even if the incident energy is changed. Okay, what do I mean by that? Now if, let's say, initially I had given the laser beam to the molecule which is carrying an energy, let's say, equal to 120. Okay, so it will give me Rayleigh scattering, it will give me a Stokes line and an anti-Stokes line. So if we just try to make out the difference between the Rayleigh scattering and the Stokes line, let's say it will be represented by delta E value. Okay, so this delta E value will always remain the same no matter the energy of the laser beam changes. So if I change it to 100, okay, this initial value of energy, if I change it to 100, that will be having no effect between for the value of delta E. Okay, so delta E will remain constant for any particular molecule we are talking about. We are not talking about any different molecules. We are talking of one same molecule. Okay, so even if we change the energy of the laser beam, uh, that will not at all affect to the value of delta E. It will have no change in the value of delta E. So if I say I make the energy of this laser beam as 50, let's say, okay, so even after changing the value of this beam, energy of this beam to 50, it will have no effect on delta E. Delta E will remain the same. Why? Because why just try to have some concepts out of it, because it is this energy, this delta E represents the energy difference between the two respective and consecutive orbitals in the molecule. So if the molecule is not changing, definitely this energy is also not changing. So that is why we say that even if we change the energy of the incident laser beam, it is not going to have any change on the value of delta E. Okay. Okay, so keeping these thumb rule in our mind, let's go on to the solving of the problems. This is one of the problem outline. It's just an outline of any of the problem related to Raman spectroscopy. Let's plunge into these problems. Okay, it says that the excitation energy for a molecule is obtained at 530 hertz. Okay, so hertz, if you remember, it is the unit of frequency. right? So the frequency of this radiation has been given to us, okay, and this is the excitation energy, means the one that is supplied to the molecule and the molecule gives it back as it is. That is, what is it? It is the Rayleigh scattering part, okay. And what does it say? So I just draw a vertical bar as I did in my previous slide. Okay, so this vertical bar, it represents the Rayleigh scattering, right? And what is the frequency of this Rayleigh scattering given to us? It is 530 hertz. Okay, so 530 hertz, 530 hertz is the energy, is the frequency of this Rayleigh scattering. Okay, now let's proceed. And the Stokes line is obtained at 440 hertz. So where was the Stokes line? To the left or to the right? Definitely it was to the left of Rayleigh scattering. Okay, so I draw another vertical line to the left of the Rayleigh scattering that represents the Stokes line for this particular spectrum. Okay, and the Stokes line is having a frequency of 440 hertz. Okay, fine. Now calculate the anti-Stokes frequency if the same molecule is irradiated with a frequency of 660 hertz. That's a simple thing. Okay, so the first part of the question has given us a partial information that will help us to solve the problem given to us in the second part of the question. Okay, now how do we do? I told you earlier, this gap between the Rayleigh scattering and the Stokes line, okay, that is also called as the wave number displacement, okay, or it gives us the value of delta E. Okay, and we also mentioned in our last slide that this delta E value will remain same, will remain constant, okay, and will be same for the difference between the Rayleigh scattering and the anti-Stokes line if I draw it to the right. Okay, now since the molecule is the same over here, it's mentioned over here in the problem that if the same molecule is irradiated, so that means the molecule is not changing. And if the molecule is not changing, then what will remain constant? It is delta E that will remain constant. It is wave number displacement that is going to remain as constant. Why? Because the molecule is not changing. Okay, so what do? We start the problem with the first part. Okay, the first part has given us the frequency of the Rayleigh scattering and the Stokes line. So what do I do over here is I take out the difference between the two, that is the wave number displacement. Okay, once I know the wave number displacement, then I apply that wave number displacement to the second part of the question, right? Wherein what has changed and what has not changed, right? Molecule has not changed. Molecule is same. Now, since the molecule is same, so definitely the wave number displacement will be having the same value as that in the previous case. Okay. Now, what has changed? The excitation energy for the molecule has changed. Okay, means the incident beam frequency has changed. The laser frequency has changed. Okay, it has changed from 530 hertz to now it is 660 hertz. Okay, so it is 660 hertz, no problem. This is the Rayleigh scattering frequency. Okay, now I need to calculate the anti-Stokes frequency. So what do? I know the displacement value. Okay, the wave number displacement value I know from my previous part of the question. I know the value of the Rayleigh scattering. So it's very simple. You add the value of the wave number displacement to the Rayleigh scattering and you get the value of the anti-Stokes. Okay, this is the concept on which most of the problems of Raman spectroscopy are solved. So if you have grabbed this concept, you'll definitely be able to solve the problems of Raman spectroscopy. Okay, now let's proceed to our specific problems. Okay, problem number 1. It says that a sample was irradiated by 4358 angstrom line of mercury. Okay, so what information does it give to us? It is the sample has been irradiated by laser which carries 4358 angstrom line of mercury. So what is this information? It is the information for Rayleigh scattering. Okay, fine. Remember, how was the Rayleigh scattering observed? It was obtained. It was obtained wherein the incident laser beam was there subjected to the molecule, and the amount of energy that was absorbed by the molecule, it was given out, it was emitted back by the molecule with the same value, and this was giving us the Rayleigh scattering line in the spectrum, right? Okay, so the sample was irradiated by 4358 angstrom. And what is the what does angstrom gives us information? Angstrom is the value, the unit for wavelength, right? Nanometer, angstrom, these are the values or the units for wavelength. Okay, let's proceed. A Raman line was observed at 4447 angstrom. Calculate the Raman shift in centimeter inverse. Okay, not a problem. We know that energy is equal to h mu or hc over lambda, that is Planck's equation. Also, we know that the wave number, that is mu bar, is equal to 1 over lambda, inverse of lambda, that is inversely proportional to the lambda. Or so if we substitute the value of mu bar over here, that is wave number, we get the value for energy as hc mu bar, right? Okay, now this portion of the spectrum, it actually it represents the Raman spectrum, wherein the central peak, it has been cut overheaded. Okay, the central peak represents the Rayleigh scattering. To the left of it is the Stokes line, yes, and to the right of it is the anti-Stokes line, and the change in wave number in between these two, that is the Rayleigh scattering and the Stokes line, it is given by delta mu bar, which is equal to 1 over lambda naught, that is the incident irradiated part, minus the Stokes and the anti-Stokes part. Okay, so how to proceed with this numerical? For Rayleigh scattering, mu bar is equal to 1 over lambda, that is coming from this expression, right? So mu bar, that is wave number, is equal to 1 over lambda, and if we calculate it for Rayleigh scattering, then I have just written a subscript for it, that is mu bar r, that represents the Rayleigh scattering. Okay, so that is equal to 1 over lambda, that is the wavelength of the Rayleigh scattering. And what was the wavelength of the Rayleigh scattering giving? It was given to us as 4358 angstrom. So the equation becomes 1 over 4358 angstrom, right? Okay, now I want the answer. The question wants me to calculate the answer in centimeter inverse. So what do I do? Just to avoid the calculations error, I just convert this angstrom to centimeter inverse over here only. So for that sake, I need to multiply the value in angstrom by 10 raised to the power minus 8. Why? Because 1 angstrom is equal to 10 raised to the power of minus 8 centimeters. Okay, so this is a centimeter inverse. So what do I get? I get 22946 centimeter inverse. This is the wave number of Rayleigh scattering. Okay, now the second part. We can calculate the same for the Stokes line also, for which the wavelength is given to us as 4447 angstrom. So what do I get the value of wave number? Again, the same formula, wave number is equal to 1 over lambda, and lambda has been given to us as 4447 angstrom. I convert it to centimeter and I get the value as 22487 centimeter inverse. Now, I have the value for Rayleigh scattering. If we have a look at this particular spectrum graph, so this is the Rayleigh scattering part, for which the value is 22946 centimeter inverse. Okay, the wave number for the Rayleigh scattering I'm talking about. Okay, and to the left of it, let's say we have the Stokes line, and the Stokes line also wave number we have calculated 22487. Can we now calculate this difference in wave number or the displacement in wave number? Simply by subtracting the two values, it will give us the gap in between these two lines for the wave number. Okay, so that will give me, we have shown it over here also, the Rayleigh scattering, the central one. Okay, to the left of it is the Stokes line. So Rayleigh scattering is having the wave number of this, Okay, and the Stokes line also, we know the value of the wave number, so we can simply calculate the gap between the two, the value of wave number displacement. So how much has the wave number been displaced? So it is very simple. It's just the difference between the two values that will give us the displacement of the wave numbers. Okay, so the displacement is basically the difference between two values, that is 1 over lambda r minus 1 over lambda s, or let's say mu bar r, that is the wave number of the Rayleigh scattering, minus the wave number of the Stokes line. Now these two differences are giving me the value of 459 centimeter inverse. What is this difference of 459 centimeter inverse? This difference is actually the wave number displacement, or in other words, we call it as Raman shift. We learned it in our basic principles of Raman spectroscopy video. Okay, so this is the Raman shift, which is actually the value asked in the question. So if the question says calculate the Raman shift in centimeter inverse, so the answer is 459 centimeter inverse, right? Okay, so this will go for the value of anti-Stokes line also. Why? Because it is a constant value for a particular molecule. Okay, now let's move to the next question, another one. Okay, the excitation line in an experiment is obtained at 5650. Again, the excitation line means what? Means it has given me the value for Rayleigh scattering. Okay, now it is obtained at 5650 angstrom, and the Stokes line at 5810 angstrom. Calculate the wavelength of anti-Stokes line. So here the wavelength of Rayleigh scattering is given, the wavelength of Stokes line is given. It is asked, the question is asking you to give the value of the wavelength of anti-Stokes line. I think you'll be able to solve this problem now easily. It's on the same pattern as the previous one. Okay, let's start with it. For Rayleigh scattering, mu bar r, that is the wave number for the Rayleigh scattering, is equal to 1 over lambda, that is 1 over 5650. Remember, whenever it is said the excitation line, that means the Rayleigh scattering part is given. Why? Because that is the line which emits all the absorbed radiation. Okay, whatever is absorbed is emitted back. Okay, so that gives us the Rayleigh scattering. Fine. So 5650 angstrom is a wavelength for the Rayleigh scattering part. From this wavelength, we calculate the wave number, which actually comes out to be as 17699.1 centimeter inverse. We do the same process for the Stokes line also, as we did in our previous question also. So the wave number for the Stokes line, it is 1 over lambda, and lambda is 5810 angstrom. So we calculate the value in centimeter inverse, it is 17211.7. Okay, now when we know the value of the Rayleigh scattering, we know the value of the Stokes line. What's next? The displacement. Okay, so the wave number displacement is the next step. So from these values, from the difference of these values, we calculate the wave number displacement, which is actually the Raman shift value. Okay, so the displacement comes out to be 487.3 centimeter inverse, which is obtained by the difference between the two values. Okay, and if you remember, this difference will be the same as this difference between the Rayleigh and the anti-Stokes line. Okay, so once I know the difference between these two, okay, then what is the next step? The question is asking me to calculate the wavelength of anti-Stokes line. Okay, so the anti-Stokes line actually lies towards the right. So what will be the next step? Add the value of the difference to the Rayleigh scattering. Okay, so you will get the value of the anti-Stokes line. Okay, fine. So Rayleigh scattering was having this as wave number. We calculated out, and the Raman shift is 487.3. So what do I do? Since the anti-Stokes line lie to the right of Rayleigh scattering, so definitely the value is to be added to the Rayleigh scattering. Okay, so we get the value of 18186.4 centimeter inverse. Now this is the value obtained for wave number. It is not the wavelength. Please don't forget that. This is a very common mistake that is students often commit. Okay, so this centimeter inverse is the unit for the wave number. It is not the unit for the wavelength. So what do I what do I need to do next? I need to convert this wave number into wavelength. Very simple. I know that wave number is inverse of wavelength. So what do? I know the value of the wave number over here, that is 18186.4. Okay, so I can calculate the value of wavelength from it. Okay, so the wavelength will be 1 over 18186.4. That comes out to be 5498.5 angstrom. Okay, now this is my final answer, that is the wavelength of anti-Stokes line. Okay, I've converted it to angstrom also in the last step. Okay, so just remember one thing: if you know the value of the wave number of Rayleigh scattering, if you know the value of the wave number of a Stokes line, or let's say if you know the value of anti-Stokes line also. Okay, so what you can attain? You can attain the Raman shift by the difference in between the two values. Okay, once you know the Raman shift, or let's say once you know the wave number displacement, okay, value, then you can attain the value for the Stokes line, or it can go vice versa also, as we solved it in this problem. Okay, but remember one thing: if you are asked to calculate the value of, let's say, a wave number or wavelength for Stokes line, then you need to subtract the Raman shift from the Rayleigh scattering. Okay, this is one point. On the other hand, if you have to calculate, or if you want to know the value of anti-Stokes line, then you need to add the Raman shift to the Rayleigh scattering. This should be clear in your mind. Why? Because Stokes lie to the left. So let's say we take Rayleigh scattering as the origin. So let's say in that case, the Stokes line will be attained by subtracting the value from the Rayleigh scattering. And what value? The Raman shift value. Okay, I hope now you will be able to solve any kind of problem like this. Okay, let's move on to the next problem. This problem has also been there in one of the GATE examination. Okay, so the excitation wavelength of laser in a Raman effect experiments is 546 nanometer. I just told you the excitation value, or the excitation wavelength, or excitation wave number of the laser is given. That means what is given to me? It is the Rayleigh scattering. Okay, so the Rayleigh scattering value has been given to me as 546 nanometer. Okay, let me proceed. If the Stokes line is observed at 552 nanometer, okay, then the wave number of anti-Stokes line in centimeter inverse is what? Very simple. I know the value for Rayleigh scattering, right? It is 546 nanometer. Now look here, nanometer means wavelength is given to me. Okay, just go with the unit first. Nanometer means wavelength is given to me. So the wavelength is given to me for Rayleigh scattering. Can I calculate the wave number from this? Yes, definitely I can. Why? Because wave number is the inverse of wavelength. So I get the value of Rayleigh scattering over here in centimeter inverse as 18315 centimeter inverse. Okay, now let's proceed. The second part of the question says that the Stokes line is observed at 552 nanometer. The same process I will do for Stokes line also, as I did in the previous question also. So the Stokes line, for the Stokes line, wave number can be calculated as inverse of wavelength. So definitely it is 18115.9 centimeter inverse. Okay. Once I know the Rayleigh scattering value, wave number, and the Stokes line wave number, can I calculate the difference between the two? Or let's say, can I calculate the Raman shift in this particular experiment? Yes, definitely I can, by the difference between the two values. Okay, so the Raman shift or the wave number displacement will be the difference between the two values, and that comes out to be 199.1 centimeter inverse. Now, this is the Raman shift or the wave number displacement. Let me go back to the question. What is he asking? He says that wave number of anti-Stokes line. Okay, so let me have a picture of these lines. Okay, the energy bar and the Rayleigh scattering, the Stokes line, okay, sorry, and the anti-Stokes line. Okay, so the anti-Stokes line, light to the right. I know the value of the Rayleigh scattering wave number. Yes, I know. I know this wave number displacement value also. That means the Raman shift. Yes, I know. So if I know these two values, I can definitely attain the value for anti-Stokes line. What do I do is, since the anti-Stokes line lie to the right of the Rayleigh scattering, I am going to add the Raman shift to the value of the Rayleigh scattering. Okay, so this was the value for my Rayleigh scattering. Okay, I add the Raman shift, so I get the value of 18514.1 centimeter inverse. This centimeter inverse means the wave number. Okay, please do not stop over here. Why? Because I need to check in the question whether wave number is asked or wavelength is asked. Now I go back to the question. Here wave number is asked in centimeter inverse. So now I can relax. Okay, so the value will be 18514.1 centimeter inverse as the wave number of anti-Stokes line. Okay, so I hope this was an easy job for you by now. Let's move on to the next problem. Which of the following lines are most intense? Okay, for that again we need to have a recap of what was the energy bar. It was this. Oh my god, I'm sorry. This was the energy bar. Okay, and the central line represents the Rayleigh scattering. This line is actually obtained when all of the energy absorbed by the molecule has been emitted out, has been given out when it comes back from the virtual state. Okay, and to the left of it is the Stokes line, to the right of it is the anti-Stokes line. Definitely this is the one which has high intensity or the most intense. So it is the Rayleigh scattered radiation, which is the Rayleigh scattered line. This is the correct answer for the question. So the Rayleigh scattered radiation is considerably the more intense than either of the two lines obtained in the spectrum, that is the Stokes line and the anti-Stokes line. So it is the Rayleigh scattered line which is the answer to this conceptual question. Okay, next question. Okay, this question is actually a bit like say next level question. Okay, so in this question the wave number has been given to me, right? The three different wave numbers for a molecule. Okay, now if I observe this molecule, okay, in the IR spectroscopy, using the IR spectroscopy technique, so what do I get? I get bands at these three particular wave number values, or let's say these are three modes which I obtain. Okay, and for IR it is given Vs over here. Vs actually stands for very sharp, right? So it is giving us the information that at 2215 centimeter inverse we get an IR band which is very sharp. Okay, again at 1250 centimeter inverse we are getting an IR band which is again very sharp, but at 516 centimeter inverse we are getting an IR band which is sharp. Okay, not very sharp. And these values PR and PQR are also given. Actually these PR and PQR bands which are given to us, they also give information about the second part of the spectroscopic technique. That's a big quite a big topic. So here we take it as PR and PQR line, and I'll let you know what these lines stands for and when do we obtain these lines. Okay, fine. For the same molecule in the Raman spectroscopy, we observe again at 2215 we observe a sharp peak, and at 1250 we obtain a very sharp peak. Okay, and both of them are attained in the depolarizing uh, environment. Okay, now the question asked that for this particular information of the molecule, the structure of AB2. So the molecule is AB2. There are two B atoms and one A. Okay, the structure of the molecule is asked, whether it is linear symmetrical, whether it is bend symmetrical, or linear asymmetrical, or bend asymmetrical. Okay, now actually what happens for such type of questions, there is an important rule, or let's say there is an important topic in the Raman spectroscopy, that is a rule of mutual exclusion. Okay, now what does this rule of mutual exclusion consist of? We'll discuss only a crisp part of this exclusion rule that will be sufficient for solving such kind of numericals. Now this mutual exclusion rule says that if the center of symmetry is present in a molecule, now if we try to gather up the information about the center of symmetry, definitely a center of symmetry is that when you move, suppose from a point in a molecule to the left, and you attain a particular position, okay, whatever you attain, whatever you get while moving to the left will be the same as you move to the right of the origin point. Okay, so if from moving from the center to the left, you get suppose X atom. Okay, you come back to the central position and then you move to the right to the same distance as you move to the left, you again get the X position. That means the molecule carries a center of symmetry. In other words, technically we say that when the center of the molecule which contains the same components as on both the sides. Okay, so if the molecule is possessing or is having a center of symmetry, then in that case, what happens? The IR active mode will be Raman inactive. Okay, that means if let's say we say that at 560 centimeter inverse, we get an IR band. Okay, which is represented by a sharp band over here. But here in the Raman, we don't see any information. Okay, that means this mode of 560 centimeter inverse is IR active, but it is Raman inactive. Why? Because we don't get any information in the Raman spectrum. So that means it was inactive in this particular technique. Okay, so let's come back to the mutual exclusion rule. If the center of the symmetry is present in the molecule, then the IR active mode will be Raman inactive. Okay, and vice versa. That means the Raman active will be IR inactive. Now this is only applicable for the case of centrosymmetric molecules that possess the center of symmetry, such as N2F2. It possesses a center of symmetry. Okay, now if the center of symmetry is absent in a molecule, then what can happen? It can be, the mode can be IR active, the mode can be Raman active, or it can neither be IR active nor Raman active. So these three conditions are possible if the center of symmetry is absent in a molecule. Okay, now since both the modes are IR and Raman active over here, okay, so the molecule does not possess center of symmetry. Why? Because in this information we see that this mode is IR active as well as Raman active also. Now this mode is also IR as well as Raman active. So when both IR and Raman active modes are present, that means the first point, that means this point, is not applicable over here. Why? Because it says either IR active or Raman active. If it is IR active, it will not be Raman active. If it is Raman active, it won't be IR active. So that means this condition or this position or this state of molecule is not present. That means the center of symmetry is absent in the molecule. This will be very important for us as a judging criteria for the prediction of the structure of the molecule, which is actually asked over here. Okay, so the center of symmetry is absent in the molecule. Okay, it is not present. So that has been proved. So one part of it has been chucked off. Now coming to the second part of the mutual exclusion rule, if the center of symmetry is absent in a molecule. For that sake, we need to learn about these PR and PQR bands. Now PQR bands are actually based on selection rules. Okay, for a linear polyatomic molecule, let's say we take the example of carbon dioxide. Okay, so this is oxygen. My carbon is a bit curvy. I'm sorry, please adjust with it. So this is carbon dioxide molecule. Okay, it consists of 3 atoms, so definitely it is a polyatomic molecule, and also it is linear in shape. Okay, now what is the plane? What is the axis of symmetry of this molecule? This is the axis of symmetry. Yes or no? Okay, so for a linear polyatomic molecule, let's say we have taken the example of CO2 over here, the mode of vibration that is parallel to the axis of symmetry. Okay, the modes of vibration parallel to the axis of symmetry, that means this line. What will be those modes? Remember, we studied the stretching and the bending modes of vibrations. Yes, for stretching mode of vibration, it is symmetric stretching or it is anti-symmetric stretching, right? So for symmetric as well as anti-symmetric stretching, what is the direction? What is the direction? It is definitely parallel to the this axis of symmetry. Yes. Okay. So the mode of vibration that is parallel to the axis of symmetry, these modes will have only PR branch. Okay. So these modes will have only PR branch. Okay. This we need to learn about it. On the other hand, in case of bending vibration, what happens in bending vibration? These molecules, they the bond length remains the same, but the bond angle changes. So these oxygen will bend down and back and forth and back and forth. So bond angle is changing in the bending mode of vibration. Okay, so in the bending mode of vibrations, since the bending mode is perpendicular to the axis of symmetry, this was the axis of symmetry of molecule, yes, and bending is happening. Now, if this was the axis of symmetry and my bending is taking place in this direction, so definitely I will say that it is perpendicular to the axis of symmetry. So in that case, when it is perpendicular to the axis of symmetry, these molecules will have a PQR band. Okay, so we just need to learn about two things over here, that whenever the mode of vibration is parallel to the axis of symmetry, it is PR band which is present. Okay, and whenever the mode of vibration is perpendicular to the axis of symmetry, it is the PQR band which is present, or PQR branch which is present. Okay, also if we talk about the non-linear or the bend molecule, if it is a bend molecule, this was the case for a linear molecule. Now if the molecule is bent, just like water, okay, hydrogen over here and 2 oxygen atoms over here, I'm sorry, oxygen over here and 2 hydrogen atoms over here. Okay, so what will be the case over here? Now since the molecule is overall bent, it is not linear. Okay, so all the modes in such molecules, they will possess PQR branch. Okay, why? Because it is perpendicular to it. Okay, so since let's come back to the question now. Since both PR and PQR, this is PQR. So since both PR and PQR bands are present over here, so the geometry of the structure is linear. Okay, so if it is linear, then we have two options. Either it is option 1, that A, that is linear symmetrical, okay, or it can be C option, linear asymmetrical. Now, how to decide whether it is symmetrical or asymmetrical? We have a molecule AB2. Okay, now AB2 can be arranged like this: A in the center and B on its two sides, right? So this can be one of the arrangements. So it is linear, right? But it is symmetrical. That means if I move from A to the left side, I get a B. If I move from A to the right side, I again get a B. Now another form in which, another geometry in which the molecule can arrange itself is this one. That means B is bonded to another B and then which is bonded to A. Okay. Now, first one was linear symmetrical, right? The second choice of the geometry of the molecule is linear, but it is not symmetrical. Why? Because if I pick up the central atom and I move to the left, I get a B. Okay, now if I move from from the central B to the right, I get A. So that means definitely it is not symmetrical. So this is linear asymmetrical. So I have two choices over here. Okay, linear. First of all, the molecule is linear. That we have concluded from these PR and PQR bands. Okay, now when the molecule is linear, that means we can choose from A or C. These can be the best options. Now out of these two, which one is the best one? How to do? We have come across the first rule of mutual exclusion, that the center of symmetry is not present in the molecule. Right? Why? Because IR active mode is there and at the same time Raman active mode is there. So from the first rule, we had come to the conclusion that the molecule is not having a center of symmetry. Now, out of these two states in which the molecule can exist, which of them is the one which is not possessing the center of symmetry? Definitely the second one. Okay, so it is linear asymmetrical, which is the best choice, and linear symmetrical is chalked off. Okay, so the answer to this problem will be linear asymmetrical. Okay, this is the answer. I hope you were able to understand the concept of Raman spectroscopy and also the concept how to solve the problems, numerical problems specifically of Raman spectroscopy. Okay, now keep on practicing and let me know if there are still problems. You can give it in the comment box so that we can work upon it more. Thank you.